Did you know that 20 million children in the US are struggling with having the proper clothing and necessities that they need? Well, our guest today is Lynn Margherio. She is the visionary founder of Cradles to Crayons, and over the past 2 decades has been fighting to change this. C2C provides children living in crisis, homeless kids, or low income situations with the outfits and the essentials that they need, distributing more than 1 million packages every year of clothing, shoes, diapers, school supplies, and more, all free of charge. And so today we're going to talk about the underlying issues. We're going to talk about what they do, how they solve them. And I know it's going to be really inspirational. So, Lynn, welcome to the Leaders Transformation. We're glad you're here today.
Thanks so much, Nicole.
My pleasure. Well, before we go any further, let's do a shout out to Teak Media. I always like to acknowledge those that support this show with amazing guests, and they introduced us. So thank you to Jackie and her amazing team at Teak Media. So let's talk about what inspired you, Lynn, to start this initiative, because I know you had another career before. Maybe talk about that leading up to what made you launch it.
Yeah, Nicole. Well, my background is business consulting, and I also worked in the Clinton White House on healthcare reform. And about 23 years ago, I was visiting my niece in Michigan, which is where I grew up. And I was helping her get dressed, and she was probably 2 at the time. And I was digging through drawers and looking for clothes that would fit her. And I was pulling out onesies and tops that still had tags on them, but she'd clearly outgrown them. And then I visited my brother just down the street and saw that his kids were growing really quickly. And so the clothing, the books, and the other essentials that they had no longer worked for them. And it's just the case that kids grow really quickly, that in 3 to 6 months, they're outgrowing their clothes. In 3 to 6 months, they're no longer reading books that made them happy just a few months earlier. And so, what happens to those items? Oftentimes, they just get stuck where they are. So, they're stuck in bureaus and in drawers. They might be stuck on store shelves. And so I had this idea that there is this ever recharging source of supply. And if I could just harness it and move it from where it wasn't helping a child anymore, wasn't giving that child joy, if I could move that into a home where a child was at that developmental stage to really benefit from that sweater, that winter coat, that pair of shoes. And so that was really the impetus for Cradles to Crayons. And 23 years later, we're providing more than 1 million packages each year to kids in several cities across the country.
Amazing. Amazing. You know what? It's funny because a lot of those things, yes, they, like you said, they end up on the shelves, so they get passed down maybe to another sibling. But if it's the last sibling, then who else is going to get it? Or even like I've noticed, like even with some of my friends, when they have their second, third, fourth child, they don't want to have the same things and pass it down. So they get new stuff, or you have a baby shower and you're getting new stuff. And so then, yeah, like, what do you do with all this? And I know churches oftentimes will do bazaars and will repurpose that and so forth. But by and large, a lot of that stuff is getting wasted, or it's ending up in landfills
Mhm.
where it's like the same thing happens as adults, right? We get tired of something. What we do, we throw it out. We may give it to the Goodwill, but a lot of times it just gets chucked. And so there's so much wastage there. Now, there's acknowledging the issue, and there's doing something in your community, a little bit in your community. And then there's taking it to where you took it, which is creating an organization. This is your full time, this is what you do. This is your life's work. There's a big jump between one and the other. So like, what really was the impetus for you to say, or maybe that process that you went through to say, this isn't just something I'm going to do in my community for a few people, but this is something I want to take to another level? Because I know there's a lot of people that are listening, like that are thinking about doing something and deciding, is this a little thing or is this a big thing? And how do I do that?
Yeah, and Nicole, I had no idea if anybody was even going to be interested in this, if there was truly a need, if other people had already solved the need.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did was start talking to people. And, whenever I have questions, whenever I'm trying to do something new, I try to go to the experts, people who will have information that can help give me the answers. And so, so I started out by going to organizations that were providing supports to kids and families who were struggling financially to see, is this a need? Do they have a need for clothing? What other kinds of supplies do they have a need for? Is it for little kids? Is it for big kids? Is it for everybody in between? And are they already solving that? Do they already have a system in place that's taking care of this need? And what I was hearing from from social workers and case managers, from teachers, was that it is a need every day. They are seeing kids who are showing, teachers are seeing kids who are showing up on a snowy winter day with sneakers that are sopping wet because they didn't have winter boots, or they would have a child who wasn't showing up to school because he didn't have a winter coat and couldn't wait for the school bus out in a 20-degree day. And so I would hear about teachers paying for the supplies the students in their classes needed, to the point where they just didn't have any more funds to do it, and because the problem was too large. Or for kids who were in preschool age, um, who didn't have diapers. And so what I was learning was that families had to make a really tough decision between putting food on the table, paying rent, and getting kids these everyday essentials of a warm sweater, a pair of pants, or diapers. And oftentimes they just didn't have enough to do all of it, and so the children were going without. Um, and you have really well-meaning, very dedicated case managers and nurses and teachers, but they have full-time jobs. And their job is not to try to clothe these kids, but their job is really to try to get the kids in a situation where they are able to realize their potential, where they're able to learn. And not having this need met is a big barrier to that. So I was
Talk about
hearing
that.
time and again. So I was
Yeah.
hearing time and again, I am faced with this situation every day. I don't have the time to do it. I don't have any storage in my, in my Head Start center, or in this shelter to store items as they might come in. Um, but it would be a really important service if I could rely on an organization and reach out to them when there was a 5-year-old boy who needed a pair of shoes that fit, and who needed a week's worth of matched outfits. Um, or that I could reach out and order for an entire classroom. That type of support would be really valuable. It wasn't something that the agencies that I was speaking with back 20 years ago had. Um, uh, they didn't have those resources available in their community. So it was really left to chance, and it was left to the individual caseworker or teacher to try to fill what is a really, really large gap across our country.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times we think about like those things, right? Food, shelter, but it's food, shelter, clothing, and all the things that go with that. Talk about this idea of, and I'd never heard the term before, clothing insecurity. And that's not oh, I'm not wearing the fanciest, latest designer brands. This is clothing insecurity. Like when you talked about potential and teachers being there to help kids realize their potential, talk about the connection between that psychologically, what happens.
Yeah. When you ask that question, I think about this little girl who was 6 years old, and she was in her classroom and she was fidgeting. She asked her teacher to be excused to go to the bathroom, and the teacher escorted her to the bathroom and waited for her. And the little girl said, "Can you help me?" And the teacher went in and she said, "Well, what do you need?" She said, "Well, my mom always helps to snap the top button of my pants." And when the teacher looked to do it, the little girl had to literally suck in her stomach and so that the pants would snap shut. And the teacher in that moment realized this little girl's fidgeting in the classroom wasn't because she was trying to be, trying to
Act out or whatever.
act
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
exactly, or wasn't paying attention. It was because she was really uncomfortable. She was wearing pants that actually hurt her. They were digging
Wow.
into her because they didn't fit. So the teacher ordered clothing from us, and it was like a light switch went off for that little girl. She showed up to class and she was raising her hand. She had a smile on her face. She was paying attention and she was being
Wow.
like, like the other kids in the classroom, just there wanting to learn and, have friends in her class. And it
Yeah.
just took having, it just took that teacher being in a situation to notice that this girl didn't have clothes that fit her
Yeah.
and and making that change for her.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and again, it's the things that we take for granted, right? That we don't think about, that can be a really big, have a really big impact. It's on somebody's attention span. It's like now obviously when we come with food, if they're hungry, they can't pay attention. But yeah, if their clothes are not fitting, they can't pay attention. If they're too cold, they can't pay attention. If they're too hot, they can't pay attention.
And Nicole, too, there can also be the subject of bullying.
Yeah.
If there is
Oh
a
yeah.
there is a child who's showing up to class wearing the same outfit day after day, the kids notice and they make fun of that child.
Yeah.
Um,
Or the pants are too short or the whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Or a boy is wearing his mom's sweater because that's the warmest article of clothing in the
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
It can even be so bad that, you'll get calls into Child Protective Services if someone notices that a child is wearing the same clothing day after day, because you can have someone think that there is neglect happening.
Yeah.
And we hear that over and over again. It's
Mm.
not because these parents don't love their kids. It's not because they don't want to do what's best for them. It's because they can't afford
Yeah.
to provide them with the basics. And clothing is that very visible sign of poverty
Yeah.
and very visible sign that this child's basic needs aren't being met.
Yeah. So talk about the process, right? So like even from a supply chain standpoint of like, okay, where do these clothes come from? How do you gather them? And then how do you distribute them? You mentioned teachers, you work with different organizations. Talk about how that process actually works.
So we have a few different models. We've got what we call our giving factory locations. We've got three of them, one in the Boston area, one in Philadelphia, and one in Chicago. And in those communities, we'll have schools and faith-based organizations and corporations who are holding drives for us, throughout the year. And so they will collect items and then they will deliver them to our Giving Factory location. We have an army of volunteers who come in every day and they help us to sort through bags and boxes of random stuff and turn it into matched outfits that will last a child for a week, or they will put together an order for a child that takes into account their age, their size, their gender, and then once the order is ready to be picked up, it will be a case manager or a teacher, a social worker, maybe a nurse who comes from that partner agency and who collects the orders for the kids in their program and does that last mile distribution. We've got another program that is a virtual, it's online. We call it Giving Factory Direct. And you can be anywhere in the country. And you can say, I have clothes that I would like to donate because my kids have outgrown them. You go on and you tell us, I've got clothes in, for a child who wears boys, size 2T. And we give you information about what you should put in the bag and what our quality standards are. And we match you to a child who wears that size gender combination. We give you a shipping label. You put it in a box, you take it to UPS, and it will go to an agency that's providing direct supports to that little boy who wears size 2. And so you can know that the clothes that you are donating are going directly to a child who could really use them at no charge to that child. So there are
That's
different
awesome.
ways you can engage with us and make a difference in your own community, or you could make a difference in a community that's a bit further away, maybe a place where you grew up.
Yeah, I love that. Wow. And I love how you're making, just even the way, obviously you've been doing this for a long time, is how to make it most efficient in terms of how to get it into the hands of the kids as quickly as possible as well, in that process, rather than the extra step and all of that. But you do have like 50,000 volunteers, I think you said, annually.
Mhm.
How do you manage all of that? Because that's a big deal.
Uh, yes, and it really does take um, both systems as well as staff to be able to do outreach to get the volunteers to come in, identify and let people know that we are a place where you can come in and volunteer. And then we want to use people's time really well. So when you show up to one of our Giving Factory locations, we want you to have fun. We want you to know that you made a difference. And we want you to come back and tell other people about your experience so that we can keep serving more kids. And and so that's really how it works. So we've got a database where you will register and let us know what time and day you're able to come in. And so we'll register you as an individual or as a group. You come in at the time that you've signed up for, and we do an orientation. We'll let you know what our mission is, why your time is really valuable to us, and then we'll get you off and working in one of our stations in the Giving Factory. We've got music that's a lot of fun. It's always a full house. And so you'll just see other people there. It might be a corporate group. It might be a group of third grade class that's in. It might be a church group that is in, and so you're really feeling like you're a part of a community because you are.
Yeah.
And then 2 hours later, you wrap up, clean up your station, and then we bring you back together and we share how much we accomplished. in
Yeah.
that time. And so people will just call out from the different stations, here's what I did, and here's how many kids we were able to help.
Yeah. Well, I love that. It reminds me of going to the food bank and helping there and doing that. Or we have locally here an organization called Got Your Back, and they pack backpacks for kids that are don't have the food and whatever to go over the weekend sometimes, and so they
Mhm.
it's very subtle. So they give them a backpack as opposed to offering them the canned goods visibly.
Yep.
And so yeah, there's all these really awesome organizations out there that are doing this. And so yeah, it's like, so you're in Boston, Philadelphia, and Chicago, or where your giving factories are. Have you ever, are you looking at expanding? I know you're also transitioning, right? Like this is even as a CEO. So maybe we can talk about
Yeah.
the vision
So
and where is it going with, yeah,
So through Giving Factory Direct, we're also serving kids in New York City
different
and
parts.
San Francisco.
Mm-hmm,
And we are looking right now to try to both raise awareness
mm-hmm.
of clothing insecurity as a basic need that, it's one of those obvious things when you have a conversation about it, people get it. Like, of course, you need to have clothing to go out in the world and project who you are and who you want others to, or how you want others to think about you, and also just to be warm and safe. So we want to raise awareness so that any organization out there who wants to take up this mantle of ending clothing insecurity in their own community, that there are others in right in their neighborhood who are starting to hear about this as a need and starting to realize that, wow, I've got kids and my kids are growing really quickly, and a lot of the things that I have in my home are in beautiful, like new condition that can make a difference right here in my own neighborhood. So we want to educate people about this as a need, and we want to give people the tools to be able to make a difference. And so whether that is coming in and volunteering in one of our locations or finding an organization in their own community that is addressing clothing insecurity, we want people to take that action and then use the Giving Factory Direct tool to just make it so convenient for people. They don't even have to leave their own house. They can just volunteer from the comfort of their living room.
Yeah, love that. And then, yeah, so talk about the vision of going forward. So that's, you already have that in place, and that is amazing. So that people from all over the country, wherever, can get involved. Um, I was alluding to the fact that, like, I know you and I were talking beforehand, and you've been 23 years as the CEO. That you are now looking for a successor and starting to move into a new season. I don't know where you're at, because we talked a few months ago, where you're at with that. Maybe talk a little bit about that journey, that process, because at some point, yeah, whatever we create, we want it to be able to last beyond us. And there's a
Mhm.
succession plan that needs to be in place to make that happen, keeping the vision alive, and the systems and all of that as well alive.
Yeah, Nicole, this is you hit the nail on the head. Any founder or any leader of an organization wants to know that what they created and the need that they are meeting is going to continue to be met well after they move on.
Yeah.
And so it was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make, to say that, what the time is right for me to move on. My kids are teenagers. My daughter is going to be going to college in a year and a half, and so I want to be able to spend more time with my family. And I also feel like there's, the organization has it. We've got an amazing group of people, amazing individuals who are really dedicated to our mission. and really want to expand and do more for the 20 million kids across the US who are facing clothing insecurity. And so when I did the balance of saying, okay, is it feels like it's my time? And and I looked at, is the organization ready as well? And the answer to that was yes. Now, was it ready for me to leave tomorrow? No. What I wanted to do and what I've been doing with our board and with our leadership team is really setting the stage for a smooth transition.
Mm-hmm.
So I approached my board chair several months ago, and I said, I'm thinking about this as my last year as CEO, and let's, how can we do this? This is
Mm-hmm.
brand new for me. It's really scary. um, but let's talk through it. And he was amazing. And we started to really plot out what are the things that need to be set up
Mm-hmm.
so that when we have a new person in place, the organization is ready for that handoff and it's not coming as a surprise. And so it involved creating a communications plan. The board created a search committee and hired a search firm to lead the search. And they got a lot of input from our team and from our stakeholders. What's this organization? What are the opportunities ahead? What are some of the challenges? What do we need in a next CEO?
Mm-hmm.
And so all of that input came together to create what the position description was. And the board's been, leading that search, and we're in the final stages. And so I anticipate that shortly I will be passing the baton to a new leader, and I will be transitioning into the role of an advisor. And what does that look like? Well, that's going to really depend on what's needed.
Mm-hmm.
What does the new leader feel I can help with, and how can I be there to continue to cheerlead this organization and provide support, and not be, not well. How can I provide support in a way that empowers the new leader and empowers our leadership team to take it into the next chapter?
Yeah, it's challenging as someone who has created this thing. It's like having a baby and you birth this baby and then it's like, wait a second, they're going off to college now. I still want to have influence and I want to, and then if you're an advisor, then it's like, where's that balance between, well, I wouldn't do it that way, but letting go, but still being, in love with it. It's an interesting dynamic.
Nicole, it's
Yeah.
been an emotional roller coaster,
Yeah.
particularly in the very early kind of stages of this, where, I had made that decision like, okay, it's time, but
You can make the
there was,
decision intellectually,
you
but it's
make the
still,
decision until it's the emotional
yeah.
impact. And it's like, wow, am I really ready? Is this really what I want? Is the team really, you just
You're
start
willing to let
second
go of it.
guessing.
Yeah.
And then am I willing to let go? And also just the unknown. I've never done this before.
Yeah.
And and so it'll be new, and then also this has been Cradles to Crayons has been my baby, my first baby, and
Yeah.
so I will always love it, and I will always want to be helpful, but I don't want to overstep, and then also just thinking about when uh, there will always be unfinished business, right?
Mm.
Any going concern by definition has a lot of balls in the air. And
Hmm.
so just knowing when, okay, this is as far as I can take it,
Yeah.
and then it's passing it off and trusting that others will move it forward. And so that's been very much a learning and a growth experience for me over the last several months. And as I go into this next chapter, um, I've also got, it's also brand new. And I don't know I don't know what's ahead. And it's both exciting, but it's also kind of scary.
Yeah. It's like, what am
Um,
I going to do after this? It's like, well, wait a
oh,
second, just stay right here and let's focus on this first.
yeah,
Yeah.
and and I think you can always fall into that trap, like, well, I'm needed, or
Mm.
this thing is something we have to get past before I can move on. Well, there's always going to be that thing.
Yeah.
There's always
Yeah.
going to be whatever the crisis of the day is, or the opportunity, or the wonderful idea that someone puts forward, and you say, oh my god, I want to be part of this. And so it's just that release, it's the letting go and saying, this
Yeah.
is going to be an exciting time for the organization, and they'll figure it out, and they'll be amazing
Yeah.
in the process.
Yeah. Well, and bringing a new leader in sometimes with a fresh set of eyes and vision,
Hmm.
they see it differently, and that can be good. That can be scary, but it can be really good. Where they're like tag out. I got this, and then I'm going to take it to
Yeah.
the next leg of the relay. And yeah, so it'll be exciting to see how it continues. Yeah, and what they do
and
with it.
and I have to be okay with that.
Yeah,
And I am okay with that. I mean, I'm
yeah,
sitting here today and I'm saying I'm okay with that. And
yeah. I'm sure there's moments
you
where you're
know,
like, am I though? I'm not sure. but
but
but you don't know
but
until you
that's
get into it. You can't plan for that. Like no amount of yeah,
no, and it may, and it could be very much that, like, yep, I've got it. Thanks, Lynn, and now you go over here. Or it could be, there's something that it would be great to get your insights on,
yeah,
and in the 20 years of history, and can you help? And I have to be ready for
yeah,
either of those things, and
yeah,
maybe I'll. Um, and I suspect there will be times where it feels joyful, and then there'll be times when I feel like, oh my God, what did I do?
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, especially if you're, because a lot of times our identity is wrapped up in what we do, and when
Mhm.
we have something like this, so we've hold so closely, when you take that away, then it's like, well, who am I now, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, well, who is Lynn without Cradles to Crayons? Who is Lynn without that CEO role and all the responsibilities and all the people that
Yeah.
look up to her and so forth? Who is she without that? And and what's next for you in your own season? So yeah, a lot of times we can, as a coach, I notice like you can run ahead and start
Hmm.
worrying about those things or dreaming about those things. And that's good to kind of like, put your foot in the water a little bit, or like just kind of starting to conceptualize it, letting it marinate, if you will,
Hmm.
in terms of the possibilities. And in the meantime, stay right in the moment of what needs to happen right
Yep.
now, to make sure that that transition happens successfully. Because I've seen that with leaders. Sometimes they're done, right, and they're looking at and they're saying, "Hey, I want to move on," but then they start to check out before they've actually passed the baton. And so
Hmm.
there's the two sides. Either you don't want to let go of it, or you let go of it too fast. I used to do relay as a kid. I'm just like, yeah, it's a great analogy, right? It's
Right.
like can't let go of it too soon, and you can't hold
Yes.
on to it too long. So there's
Right.
this balance in between. So
Yes. And
awesome. Yeah.
it's finding that balance. But that's exactly what, it's being planful, and you know, seeking alignment with
Hmm.
leadership and,
Hmm.
and then doing your part.
Yeah.
And when I say that, it sounds easy. And so far, what I
Yeah.
would say is I really feel great about where we are.
Yeah.
And I feel really great about how I've been included in the process to get to where we are. Um, and I'm excited. I really am
Yeah.
excited
Yeah.
about where our team and where the new leader can take the organization because I know we're needed
Yeah.
and I know we've got a tremendous team and community of supporters who care a lot about the kids and who want to do more.
Yeah.
And so that keeps me that gives me the permission to let go.
Yeah. Knowing that it's in good hands. Yeah,
Oh, it's
absolutely.
in good
And
hands.
I think that happens in, like, as an entrepreneur, whether it's a nonprofit or for profit or whatever, there's a point where, yeah, you got to build it. They're just saying, right, build it with the intention of selling it.
Mhm.
So, because not that you may not, but that you have the systems, that you have the mindset and the intentionality about developing the systems so that it could run without you. Because what if something happens to one of
Yeah.
us? It's like, does what we created live beyond us? I think there's a bigger question there, right? Like, what does it take to put that in place? And it sounds like that's what you've done, right? Is put it in, create the team, create the structure, create the systems and all that, so that it can live beyond you.
Hmm.
And we need to be thinking about that early on, in terms of how we create it. So this has been so good, Lynn. Thank you, and I'm
Thank
excited
you.
for you. It's like, yeah, you got all these possibilities, even for yourself, and like maybe take some time off, but you're probably not going to want to sit still for too long, so there'll be something
I,
else that'll.
I'm um, I'm excited for Cradles to Crayons, and I'm excited for me.
Yeah.
I think great things are ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Well, um we'll finish off there, and we'll send everyone to your website. Let's talk about that. So cradlestocrayons.org is your website. That's where people can go if they have a need, if they have the opportunity where they want to be able to give, whether if they're local, so Boston, Philadelphia, Chicago, currently those three locations, where you can actually go and volunteer, or even virtually, you can do the Idea Factory direct and send it to a child in need. And so I just encourage, I always say, leaders of transformation take action. So nothing happens until somebody takes action. Just like Lynn, with your story in the beginning, where you saw a need and you said, I got to do something about that. There's that decision, I'm going to do something about this. And then there's the follow through, right? So there's mindset, strategy, execution. You got to get out there and do something. And so I encourage our listeners, do something with what you learn. Maybe it inspired you that you want to start something and you've seen a need to take action on that. What's that first step for you? Maybe starting to ask questions. Is this a big need? Is this a small need? Is somebody else serving the need already? Can I support them? Or is there a gap where I need to there that needs to be filled? Maybe it is supporting Cradles to Crayons, if this inspired you in that way, and you say, you know what, I actually have some kids clothes in my house, so I can do that, or in my church. Or maybe you can get your corporate team together and saying, hey, you know what, there's this great organization, why don't we support them with, and let's all look at what we have in our houses and we can pull it together, whatever. So I just encourage you to do something with what you learned here. And we'd love to hear your stories, how this has impacted you, the actions that you take, how we can even support you along the journey. And so you can go to leadersoftransformation.com, reach out to us there, and let us know how we can do that. So again, Lynn, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the commitment that you've made over the last 23 years to just serve in this capacity, because everybody doing a little bit makes a big difference. And so, yeah, and I know that with that many kids and that many packages that have been delivered, you've made a huge dent in that issue that's out there. And there's of course more to come, but you've made a huge dent with those million packages a year. That's amazing. That is truly, truly amazing. Just from an idea, it's amazing what one person with an idea can do. So again, thank you. Appreciate you. And any final thoughts for our listeners?
No, I think you nailed it on the head. It's don't assume that others have it covered. If you've got an idea, explore it and do something about it. And volunteering, getting involved in your community or in a cause that you care about, that's how we run in this sector. It's through the support and commitment of our neighbors and our community. So nothing is too small.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Lynn, thank you again for being here. And thank you to our listeners for being here. Hope you enjoyed this and inspired you to take action. And again, we look forward to hearing how we can support you along that journey that you're on to being a leader of transformation. In the meantime, we look forward to seeing you next week on another episode of the Leaders of Transformation. Have a great day.